Buying GPUs is so shady. I got a text the other day, it's like, bro, do you have 500 GPUs? I'll pay for them today. That's like, bro, do you have 10 Ferraris? And that's not just like a insular event, that's a lot of how money moves around.
Today, we see how compute trade can be done easily and automatically with new platforms just like Compute Desk. Let's talk about it with its co-founder and CEO, Andrawes Bahou.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'm the founder and CEO of Compute Desk. Today we're in New York. We just launched the company to 350,000 financial markets participants. Our indices tracking compute prices. Everyone on Wall Street gets to see them, all of the CFOs in the world. It tells you something about what we want to do. I like to say I'm someone who's done two things in my life, compute and finance. I started my career as a chip designer at ARM. I went on to design my own custom inference accelerators almost 10 years ago at ETH Zurich. I taped out my own accelerator chips for convolutional neural networks. Life had an interesting set of circumstances for me, and I ended up at Meta, working on GPU cluster build-outs for researchers. During that time, I got to see this world of compute as an asset class, which is de facto being traded and transacted by the largest companies in the world right now. And I thought, for an asset class so large, it's really price inefficient, and there's no mechanisms to move risk around between market participants. And so I thought someone needs to build the entire capital market stack for compute as an asset class. Whatever company succeeds at doing this needs to be two things at once. It needs to be really deep on GPU infrastructure. At the same time, you need to have a very deep understanding of capital markets. So this is where my own background is infrastructure heavy. I went and built a founding team around me that is more capital markets heavy. So I went to David, that I knew for a while, and who worked back then at Winton with a guy called Rahul. Rahul is one of Citadel's most legendary quant PMs. So this is the founding team. Since then, we've hired people who cover compute at some of the top hedge funds and people who've built up compute clusters at places like AWS. Buying GPUs is so shady. I got a text the other day, it's like, bro, do you have 500 GPUs? I'll pay for them today. That's like, bro, do you have 10 Ferraris? And that's not just like a insular event, that's a lot of how money moves around. And what's happening is, it started off like this. The supply scarcity made it so much harder to get GPUs. So people are willing to pay way more, willing to move way faster. We're in the early days of the GPU markets, but what's starting noticing is like the role of the compute buyer or compute seller, their role has expanded. Now they have to go to data centers and negotiate electricity and power and co-location rates. And they have to go to inference clouds and negotiate token discounts, token rates, committed usage spend. So it's getting much more complex to organize a compute transaction because it's so large in CapEx. So they need tools to do this work better. They need financial instruments that more systematically split and move risk around between these participants. The whole reason you need to coordinate all of these people is that not all of them can go and speculatively build a data center, buy a GPU cluster. It's hundreds of millions of dollars worth of capital investment, so they can't. We're building capital markets infrastructure for compute traders. Capital markets infrastructure is 3 layers. It's trade, settlement, exchange, clearing infrastructure is the first layer. The second layer is the tools. Tools, the trade execution systems, the terminals, and layer 3 is the instruments. So it could be the GPUs themselves, but there could be GPU debt derivatives. So there's a lot of them, but how you price them, how you deal them, how you pool liquidity on all of these instruments, etc., is the infrastructure, the tools, and the instruments. When this is a $100 billion company, what does it look like? On a daily basis, you'll have something like the CFO of Google will have his asset manager structure a $10 billion hedge for that month on, let's say, the fluctuation of compute rates. That's going to pass through all of the financial markets rails that we will have partially built, some of the instruments that we will have partially provided data and information for, and potentially some liquidity. But transactions like this is the $100 billion case for a company like this. Now, step a few steps back from this, like, well, we need to reach the CFOs of every major company in the world. So as of yesterday, we're on desk of every CFO on the planet. We're on 350,000 Bloomberg terminals. But this is the first step. We give them financial information based on transactional data. They get to trade on it. They can't trade today, but this is step 2. This is the medium term stuff that we're doing. make it possible for them to transact those instruments.